Hello and welcome, Exiles. I want to talk about the November events, what I'm excited about, what I'm a little bit skeptical on, and just go over the basics of what I think are possible in each of these events. Now, to start things off with the Krangled Passive Tree, if you don't remember, we did do a Krangled Passive Tree event a couple leagues ago. Essentially, it scrambles the entire tree, and you don't know what it is. If you're on here at the Witch Start, you see this node, you click it, and then you see this node and this node, but you don't know anything else. It's a big, basically, group team effort event where everybody has the same tree, and slowly people piece together what the whole tree actually looks like and tries to optimize and make a build. Ascendancies are swapped, notables are swapped, keystones are swapped, the whole shebang. The thing about this event is it's a bit too crangled in my opinion. For example, if I wanted to go over to this cluster here and I grab this node, and the notable, it's not like the cluster stays together. This could be fire damage, this could be chaos damage, and then this could be a mana node. And you don't know until you go all the way through the cluster. But the point is, when I say it's too crangled, I mean power level your character is just abysmal. Even when you see the entire tree laid out, you can still like try to optimize it for it. Your character is still just terrible. Essentially, your tree is way too weak. With it randomized so completely, the fact of the matter is notables don't really just make the cluster worth picking up. The small nodes are pretty important too. And all throughout your tree, you're having attribute problems and difficulties across the board with having it being too crangled. There's too many small nodes that are too specific to too many different things to ever really put something, string it together, and have it be a good character. So I'm worried about this one thing with the Krangled event. I was hoping if they did Krangled again, they would swap it off, maybe try to make it a little less Krangled. Something like, I don't know, doubling the effectiveness of the small nodes. So even though your tree is so spread out and so bad, at least you could pick up some of that power by having the small nodes be doubly as effective when you find something relevant to your character, or something along the lines of keeping the clusters together, like having a totem cluster. If it gets moved, keep the small nodes together. So like if this totem cluster were to go to some other cluster that's 5 passive points, like right here, all the totem nodes would stay in a line and it would still be a coherent thing, something that is usable. So my one concern about this is it's going to be another scenario where your build is just so bad because it's just impossible to make a viable character, because you're going to pick up Hex AoE, then you're going to pick up cold damage, then you're going to pick up chaos damage, then you're going to pick up attack damage with the axes, then you're going to pick up a attack speed with staves, and none of it's going to match, and none of it's going to work together, and you're going to have a character that effectively has no relevant stats to your actual build, and then you're just slogging through having a character that just sucks and it feels bad. So I don't know. That's my worry about this. Maybe by the a couple days in, everybody's figured out the tree, you can path that and make a couple builds work. But I don't know. That's the question here. It's cool because you have the discovery, but ultimately, by the time you get to normal lab, your character is just so garbage it's unplayable. So that's a bit of a concern there. Now, after that, we have Blast from the Past. This event I'm actually really excited about because it adds two very powerful crafting mechanics that we are basically didn't get, that went legacy, and add them together, and we actually get to keep the item we make. So for example, there's some really cool things that can be done. I'll just give a few cases just to showcase the power possibilities here, something that you can do. For example, previously in Calandra League, Recombinators didn't exist, and when Recombinators existed, Calandra mirror flipping items didn't exist. So for example, if I were to take an amulet with a Zopex mana mod, 10% mana, 73 mana, I could recombinate that with a Delve mod for 15% mana. I could get an amulet that has 25% mana, 70 flat mana, and then I could put that into a Calandra ring or a Calandra mirror flip thing, and I could have those mods get doubled or even go to like, I forget, 1.5 effect. I can't remember what it goes up to, what the scale is. It doesn't get to 3 multiplier. I think it gets to like a 2.5 multiplier at like the top end. But basically, you could end up with an amulet that has over 50% mana, 150 flat mana, and of course, you could get other stats on top of that. You could get like minus lightning res, and all of a sudden, you have this Giga Juice mana amulet that you could add onto a Doriani's prototype build and be flipping enemies res with a negative lightning rate. Like, there's cool things you can do because you can combine items with recombinators. You can combine mods that shouldn't exist together and double them. The Calandra Rig specifically, you couldn't do influence or synth gear, but there are still very interesting mods between Delve mods, Incursion mods, Veiled mods, Essences mods. There's a lot of interesting mods you can try to fix together and make some really cool stuff. I'll give a few more examples. For example, The conversion node, this actually flipped to give you basically like more fizz damage. It was very interesting where you could have this be a negative version of the conversion mod, and it's actually just a more multiplier for fizz builds. It was very interesting. There's a lot of things like that. There's some mods that don't actually have a flipped version. You're going to have to maybe read up on some Calandra and try to get some ideas of things you'd want to try to combine with Recombinators and then flip with Calandra. I think it's very interesting crafting potential, creating some items that could never exist in any other league but this event right here. The thing is, it's only 7 days, which is like, you're going to have to no-life this if you want to make some really cool gear. If you don't have a lot of time, you're probably only going to make some decent gear with Recombinators type of thing. Maybe make a couple cool pieces, but 7 days, a very limited time. If you want to make some never before seen next level gear pieces, there are some best in slots that are possible to be created with this event specifically. That being said, they're only 7-day events, so it's a really tight window to try to do these things. I almost wish the Blast from the Past was the whole 21 days because I would just want to play that only and just make some cool Recombinator gear with Calandras and just make some interesting pieces. But it is what it is. 7 days, going to try to enjoy it. Myself, I'm looking at these events as testing grounds to try out some League Start tests I want to do anyways. For example, Blast from the Past, I think I'm going to test doing a Chieftain RF League Start. I think I have some ideas where it could be decent on League Start. I'm still not sold on Chieftain. The Explode node, it took me by surprise, the fact it actually had AoE, and they did update a couple of the other nodes to make them less bad by launch. I still think Chieftain is relatively limited to basically being an armor stacker or cheesing the Explode node, and ultimately it's not really a real build in most cases because there's just better things you can do with other ascendancies. You can make whatever build you make with Chieftain, generally you can make better with a different ascendancy, which I think is a feels bad situation. It doesn't feel like it's a best in slot for many things. That being said, a League Start, when I can't really get a +1 curse anointment, I actually feel like it could be a decent RF ascendancy at that point because the opportunity cost of +1 curse isn't quite there yet because you don't have golden oils on League Start. So I might try a Chieftain League Start, go for RF, do a test run there. And then for Shifting Stones, I'm thinking about testing a Spellblade Inquisitor, Cast on Crit, something like that on a League Start. There are some fun things I have planned for basically testing these events out myself. That being said, Shifting Stones, I didn't talk about this much because I don't think it's super interesting of an event. It's decent. It's basically you just get a little bit extra juice each of your zone and swaps around. I don't think it's like the craziest thing ever, but in terms of like it gives us a fresh start, a little fresh 7-day economy. It's nice little hit it and quit it, interesting spike of getting your League Start test done, getting that feel of that early economy. There's some fun just to be had in that regard. That being said, these events are only softcore trade. It's a little bit of a bummer for the people that want to play hardcore or SSF that they didn't include separate, I guess, running leagues for those people. So a bit of a bummer there. And then on top of that, they did this weird thing with 5 times XP penalty. Essentially, what I would say is make sure you have a build that has some tank. Otherwise, you're going to get hard stuck because this death penalty is just going to just delete your XP. It's, I think, essentially to make it harder to push the higher levels, but it's also a little bit weird at the same time. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure I like it. I don't know. We'll see when you actually play the event. I think it might just be extra punishment when I'm thinking I just want to do some fun event. I don't know. We'll see. That's my thoughts on November events. I think Blast from the Past is going to be really cool for the gear you can create. I wish it was longer. Shifting Stones, I think it's just kind of whatever. It's nice little fresh economy, a little bit extra map juice. It should be fun. And then Crangled Passive, I think it's probably just going to be too crangled like it was last time. I hope they changed it in some way, shape, or form, because last time it just was, your character just is going to suck. If you can make a good character in Crangle Passive, I mean, props to you. I think it's very hard to make a viable character with this sort of tree with how bricked it is. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy my opinions on these things. I just wanted to talk about it because I'm kind of excited about doing the November events. Gonna try them out. Glad we're actually getting some events opposed to not having anything happen and just being lagging on or drawing on a long league sort of thing. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy. I'll probably make some videos about each of my attempts at doing these leagues. And as always, enjoy, take care, Exiles, and peace out.